Since the beginning of time, men have bowed before beauty as if their souls were loose change traded for a whisper of affection. She doesn't need to speak. One glance, one sway, one sigh, and suddenly, you're no longer sovereign over yourself. She becomes your compass, your obsession, your destiny, even when everything inside you screams she's leading you off a cliff. The trap doesn't come in chains. It comes in curves. And Jesus knew this. That's why he said, if your eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out. Matthew 5:29. Because some temptations wear perfume and smile. You think she'll fill the void, but she widens it. Every boundary you bend, every value you break, every voice of conviction you silence. It's not love you're giving, it's pieces of your soul. And her? She doesn't even know. Not out of malice, but because she was never meant to be your God. The danger isn't her beauty or her strength. It's your surrender to it. You've become obedient to an illusion. But Jesus didn't hang on a cross so you could kneel before flesh. He died so you could rise. You don't need a spell. You need to wake up. You keep calling it desire, but it's dependency. She has become your altar, and you offer time, attention, and dignity at her feet. The worst part? You've convinced yourself it's love. But real love doesn't strip you of your purpose. Real love doesn't make you smaller, weaker, addicted. This isn't romance. It's worship. And every false god eventually demands a sacrifice. That's why you're tired, confused, and hollow. You weren't built to orbit around a woman's approval. You were built to carry a cross. And no matter how beautiful she is, if she takes God's place in your life, the result is always the same. You lose yourself. You chase her like she's salvation, but she was never meant to save you. That's why the more you get, the more empty you feel. She is not your water. She is not your bread. Jesus said, "Whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst again." John 4:14. Yet here you are, dehydrated, craving another hit of her attention, her smile, her body. It's not even about her anymore. It's about what she represents. Escape, control, validation. But that's the lie. Because what you're actually chasing isn't freedom. It's bondage dressed in silk. And every time you reach for her to save you, you fall deeper into yourself. She doesn't even have to try. The world already sold you her image 1,000 times before you met her. Through screens, ads, movies, music. They programmed your desire before you ever had the chance to choose it. And now? You can't tell the difference between attraction and addiction. You think you're pursuing her, but really, you're being led. Like a lamb to slaughter, smiling while walking into captivity. But Jesus didn't call you to be a follower of the flesh. He called you to deny it. He didn't whisper, "Chase what feels good." He shouted, "Take up your cross and follow me." Luke 9:23. And that cross? It kills every false god you've been kneeling to. You've traded discipline for dopamine, conviction for chemistry, legacy for lust. And in the moment, it feels alive. She makes you feel wanted, seen, touched. But afterward, what remains? Shame, guilt, emptiness. Because what you thought was a connection was consumption. You weren't loving her. You were using her. And deep down, you know it. That's why the thrill fades so fast. Because your spirit knows when you're betraying it. Jesus never called you to suppress your desire. He called you to master it, to rise above it, to let your desire bow to truth, not to beauty. Because real men don't chase heat, they carry light. You say you're just a man, as if that excuses your slavery. But masculinity isn't measured by how many women want you. It's measured by how many gods you refuse to bow to. The truth is, she's not your enemy. Your appetite is. And it's grown wild because you've been feeding it without asking why it's hungry. You scroll for her, dream of her, bend your schedule around her, and call it chemistry. But what it really is surrender. Not the holy kind. The cowardly kind. And Jesus didn't bleed so you could live beneath your cravings. He bled so you could conquer them. Every time you look at her and feel that pull, that ache, that heat, it's not a sign of love. It's a test, a mirror. She's not yours to own. She's your lesson, and if you keep failing it, life will keep repeating it. You'll keep finding her in different faces, different voices, different bodies, but the bondage will be the same. Because this isn't about her. It's about your discipline, your heart, your worship. And until Jesus becomes the center of your desire, every woman will look like heaven and feel like hell. You weren't made to be ruled by your biology. You were made in the image of God, mind, soul, will. But every time you obey the pull of lust, you trade your authority for appetite. You're not walking in power, you're reacting like a slave, like Esau, who gave up his birthright for a bowl of stew, Hebrews 12:16. And you do the same, for a glance, a touch, a fantasy. It's not worth it. Not your purpose, not your peace, not your future. And Jesus knew, what you lust after today owns you tomorrow. That's why he never taught men to manage lust. He told them to crucify it. She's not your wife. She's not your mission. She's not your God. But you've treated her like all three. You orbit around her moods, her posts, her presence. You feel lost without her attention and powerful when you get it. That's not attraction. That's spiritual dependency. And any woman who becomes your emotional drug will eventually become your downfall. Not because she's evil, but because you made her ultimate. And only God can hold that weight. Jesus didn't come to compete with your idols. He came to crush them. Because what you idolize, you become enslaved to. And you were never created to live in chains. You keep asking God for strength, but won't let go of what's weakening you. You want freedom, but refuse to walk away from the fantasy. You pray for clarity, but keep fogging your vision with her image. That's not confusion. It's rebellion. And Jesus won't bless what you won't surrender. The spell only breaks when you stop justifying it. Stop calling it harmless. Stop dressing it up as affection. The spell breaks when you see it for what it is. A distraction from your calling, a thief of your focus, a slow death of your soul. You think the devil needs to destroy you overnight? No. He just needs to keep you staring long enough to forget who you are. This is war. Not with her, but with the part of you that prefers fantasy to obedience, that would rather chase the rush than build the kingdom. That knows the cost of purity, but still flirts with the price of perversion. And Jesus didn't offer halfway healing. He offered full transformation, but only if you're willing to lose what's fake to gain what's real. And the truth is, until you're willing to lose her, you'll never truly find yourself. Because as long as she's your center, Christ never will be. And as long as your lust speaks louder than your faith, freedom will always feel out of reach. You think it's love because it's intense, because it consumes you. But real love doesn't enslave, it sanctifies. And what you're in isn't sacred, it's seductive. Jesus never said, follow your heart. He said, deny yourself. Luke 9:23. That's not suppression, it's elevation. He didn't come to kill your desire. He came to cleanse it, refine it, direct it. But that can't happen if you keep placing her above him. If your knees hit the floor more often for her approval than his presence, something's broken, and no amount of romance, sex, or affirmation can fix what idolatry infected. Only surrender can. She may be stunning, magnetic, powerful, but if she becomes the reason you compromise, then she's no longer a gift. She's your God. And every false god demands a sacrifice. Time, integrity, vision, and you've already started bleeding. One compromise here, one white lie there. You say, I'm just being a man. No, you're being deceived. A real man doesn't bow to beauty. He honors it without worshiping it. He sees through charm, through seduction, and stays anchored in truth. And truth says, she's not the prize. Holiness is. And if you have to lose yourself to gain her, then you've already lost the only thing that matters. Your addiction to her isn't just emotional, it's spiritual. It distorts your judgment. It rewires your identity. It blinds your discernment. And what makes it more dangerous is that you keep calling it love, romance, destiny. But deep down you know the truth. You're not building with her. You're drowning in her. Jesus didn't give his life so you could lose yours in obsession. He came to lift your head, to clear your eyes, to place your feet on solid ground. But you'll never stand firm while you're bowing low. Love isn't supposed to paralyze you, and if it does, it's not love. It's lust wearing religion's perfume. The enemy doesn't need you to fall in one night. He just needs you to keep glancing, keep fantasizing, keep returning to the same temptation wrapped in a new name. That's how spells work. They feel beautiful while they bind you. They sing while they silence you. And every time you ignore the Holy Spirit's whisper and chase her attention instead, your soul takes another step away from freedom. Jesus didn't fight for you so you could flirt with chains. He fought to break them. And every time you say yes to him, you say no to the spell. Not because it's easy, but because he's worth it. There's nothing wrong with beauty. God created it. But when beauty becomes your compass, it will always lead you into confusion. That's why so many men lose themselves in her eyes, because they stopped looking for God's reflection and started chasing their own cravings. Jesus wasn't against women. He was against anything that claimed the throne of your heart. And if her body, her voice, her presence sits where only God should dwell, then it's not love, it's idolatry. And idolatry doesn't just steal your focus, it replaces your foundation. That's why you feel unstable. Because you built your worth on her validation, not his truth. Every time you choose her over your calling, you cheapen your crown. You're not a boy anymore. You're a man. And men don't follow feelings. They follow vision. They don't need constant affirmation. They walk in assignment. Jesus never promised that denying yourself would feel good. He promised it would set you free. And freedom doesn't come when the temptation disappears. It comes when your appetite changes. When you stop looking at her like your source. When you stop expecting her to do what only God can. You weren't made to orbit around her gravity. You were made to carry fire, kingdom fire. You think you're in control, that you can manage it, that it's just a phase. But control is the first illusion lust gives you right before it devours you. One more message, one more night, one more compromise, and before you know it, your heart is numb and your vision is gone. That's how sin works. It numbs before it kills. And Jesus knew that. That's why he didn't offer comfort for temptation. He offered a sword, a clean cut, a line in the sand. He said, "If your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off." Matthew 5:30. Because some spells don't break with prayers, they break with war. You don't need another sermon, another post, another emotional high. You need a decision to stop calling her your destiny when she's clearly your detour. To stop dressing up your desires in spiritual language and call it what it is. Bondage. You've spent enough time circling this mountain, enough time pretending you're fine. Jesus didn't set you free so you could build another prison with your fantasies. He set you free so you could lead, build, walk clean. But freedom isn't passive, it's violent. It requires death. The death of the boy inside you who still thinks pleasure is purpose. Let him die. So the man can rise. There's a reason she holds that much power over you. Because you gave it to her. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Every glance you entertained. Every boundary you blurred. Every truth you ignored. You didn't lose your strength. You gave it away. Like Samson not realizing the haircut was happening while he slept in her lap. Judges 16:19. But you can't afford to sleep anymore. Not now. Not when your soul is at stake. This is your wake-up call. Not to hate her, but to see her rightly. She's not your source, not your savior. She's a daughter of God, not a god to you. Jesus didn't die so you could live seduced. He died so you could live awakened, with eyes that see beyond beauty, with a heart that bows to no one but him. And that kind of freedom, it scares the devil. Because a man who isn't ruled by lust is a man who can't be bought, stopped, or swayed. He becomes a threat, not to women, but to hell. And that's who you're called to be. Not a slave in love with your cage, but a son who knows the king. You don't have to hate her to walk away. You just have to love Jesus more. You've been living hypnotized. staring at her like she holds the answer to your emptiness. But every time you get closer, you realize she's not the source of your hunger, just a mirror of it. You don't need more access to her, you need more alignment with him. Because if she's all you see, you'll never see clearly. Jesus came not to take away your desire, but to rewire it, to lift your eyes off the temporary and anchor them in the eternal. And once that happens, once your hunger shifts from flesh to fire, you won't just escape the spell, you'll never fall for it again. She is not your test anymore. You passed, not by running but by rising, by looking temptation in the face and saying, "You no longer own me." That's what Jesus came to do, not just save you from hell, but from every lie that told you she was heaven. So here it is, simple and clear. You are free, not because you feel it, but because you chose it. And freedom, real freedom, begins when you stop bowing to beauty and start bowing to truth. Now get up, walk away, and don't look back.